Oklahoma Gardening is a production of the Oklahoma Cooperative Extension Service as part of the land grant mission of the Division of Agricultural Sciences and Natural Resources at Oklahoma State University, dedicated to improving the quality of life of the citizens of Oklahoma through research-based information. Underwriting assistance for our program is provided by the Oklahoma Department of Agriculture, Food, and Forestry, helping to keep Oklahoma green and growing. On today's Best of Oklahoma Gardening, we are planting some cool season crops and thinning carrots. Then we will visit Stilwell to take a closer look at strawberry production. I'll show you how your investment in asparagus will soon pay off. And finally, I'll show you some gourds you might want to consider adding to your garden this coming year. This is the time of year that as a gardener we all get a little antsy to get outside, and while the garden hasn't completely woken up yet, there are a few things that we can start to do, including planting some cool season crops. Now, cool season crops are different than warm season crops because they prefer growing at a temperature below 70 degrees. So they actually can really take advantage of some of these really warm winter days that we have as we head into spring. Now, if you're wondering what the difference is between a cool season crop and a warm season crop, well, a good rule of thumb to think about is what part of the plant are you trying to harvest? If it's the root, the stem, or the leaves, it's likely a cool season crop. Think about carrots, lettuce, celery, broccoli. Those sort of plants we're after the plant tissue. Whereas if you're after the fruit of a plant that comes from the actual flower, such as peppers, tomatoes, watermelon, then those are your warm season crops. And it actually kind of makes sense because when you start a plant, what's the first thing that grows on that plant? It's usually the roots and the stems and the leaves. And so therefore your harvest is a lot sooner on those plants. Now again, this is just a very general rule. It doesn't apply to all vegetables. It's not a hard and fast rule. One example that breaks this rule is sweet potatoes. So sweet potatoes is a root, but it is a warm season crop that we harvest later on in fall. So let's get to planting our cool season crops. We've got some lettuce here, some radishes, and some different greens like spinach and things like that. So we're going to do something called succession planting. Now, when you get your seed packet, a lot of times it's tempting to go ahead and plant all of those seeds at one time. But with cool season crops, you don't necessarily have to do that because it might be that if you plant all of this lettuce, then that means harvest is going to come all at the same time, and you probably don't want to be eating that much lettuce at one time before it goes bad. So succession planting allows you to plant just a little bit and then plant a little bit more the next couple of weeks and so on and so forth. So you've kind of intervaled your harvest time as well. Now we are planting today in a trough here, so I'm just going to plant about 1.5 feet of lettuce seeds. If you are starting from a previously planted container, you want to make sure that you've freshened up that soil or added new soil. Sometimes the soil level can shrink down a little bit, so we're going to go ahead and add some more potting soil to our bed here, just to raise up that level a little bit. Now, of course, a lot of times when it comes out fresh, you're going to get clods like this, so you want to make sure you break that up and then smooth out your planting area. You don't want to completely fill a container over the edge, because if you do that and when you water, then a lot of times that water will take your seeds away and wash them away. So make sure that you leave a little bit of a lip on your container. Now, the beauty of planting cool season crops is just having a nice fluffy surface area is really all you need. A lot of times the seeds are very small, so we don't really have to worry about planting space too much. You can see here with some lettuce seeds, what we're going to do, see how tiny they are? We're just going to kind of sprinkle those across our surface here. And you would do the same again with like radishes and carrots and stuff. We will probably come back and sort of thin those out just a little bit. as they continue to grow so that they don't compete for space. But we're going to just sprinkle these on here, and I'm going to do, like I said, about 1.5 feet, and that's about it. So we're going to kind of mark this area here. And I'm using my hand just to kind of cover this up a little bit, and then of course we'll need to water those in to really settle that potting soil around those seeds. So in a couple of weeks I'll come back and do another couple of feet, and so we'll have a later harvest, and we can continue to do this for a while as we go through our spring. And depending on when those warm summer temperatures finally arrive, then that's going to make our lettuce a little bitter. Now if you're new to gardening, this is one of the easiest ways to get involved in gardening is with cool season crops. Also, if you have any young kids, this is a really great way. Now with carrots, you want to be mindful though that you're after the root, and so if you have any like heavy rocky clay soils, that oftentimes will cause those carrots to split and kind of give you some funny looking carrots. Now on this particular thing, you can see that this is more of a trug style planter, and so it slopes inward. So if we were to put carrots on the edge, then they're going to kind of hit that and then kind of divert and maybe not be the straightest of carrots. Another option to do if you're just getting into gardening is just simply get a clay pot or some sort of pot like this and fill it with some potting soil. So it can be that simple. But this is a great way to grow cool season crops. If you haven't invested in a garden bed or anything like that, or you don't want to invest in a large container, something as simple as this is a great way to get started into gardening, especially for young kids as well. Some of these cool season crops, when you plant them, they will be ready to harvest in as little as 30 days, providing you with some really instant gratification. So here we have some carrot seeds. Again, they're very tiny, so you can see how little those are. And we're just going to sprinkle those along the top here and then kind of tamp them into that soil profile to make sure there's good contact, and of course we'll water those in. Remember to keep that lip there so that they don't wash away when you are watering them. Again, cool season crops is a great way to get introduced into gardening, whether you're young or finding it later on in life. You might remember a couple of weeks ago I was planting some cool season crops by seeding them directly out into the garden, and one of the samples that we did was some carrot seeds into a container. This is one of the easiest ways to get started into gardening if you're new, or especially you've got some kids that are showing some interest. This is a really great way to do that. So at this point, you can see our carrot seeds have taken off. They are germinating and they've grown quite well. So they're about 3 or 4 inches tall. And we need to go ahead and begin to thin them out. Now, thinning out is a process where you kind of open them up a little bit and allow for less competition so that the carrots that you do have remaining have plenty of room to grow and aren't fighting for water and nutrients. Right now they're too densely seeded, and that's because the seeds were rather small, so we couldn't exactly know where we were planting them. And you know, you get plenty of carrot seeds, so it's not a big deal to lose a few of them. So we're going to go in here and just with your fingers simply pull out some of those carrots that have germinated. You can see they're rather small right now, so we haven't lost too much of an investment in them. But we're going to allow for a couple of inches in between each seedling to again provide them with plenty of room to develop that carrot. Now you want to do this on some of your other cool season root crops that you might have planted, regardless of whether they're in a container or out in the garden. You want to go ahead and thin them. So radishes, turnips, beets, think about thinning those as well. Also, look at some of your leafy greens, thinning your lettuce and some of your romaine. You want to go ahead and thin those out so that they have plenty of space and airflow to continue to develop above ground as well. Doing this will ensure that you have a great crop going into the spring season. are south of Stillwell here at Miller Farms, and joining me is Bryce Miller. Bryce, thank you so much for having us
You're
here.
very welcome.
You got a few strawberries.
We got a few.
Tell us how many acres of strawberries you have here.
Currently, we got 7.5 acres.
Okay. So are you growing one type, every bearing, June bearing? Tell me a little bit about that.
Well, we currently grow 4 different types.
Okay.
One is an everbearing. The rest are June bearings.
Okay.
So we grow our June bearings are Ruby Junes, Fonterres, and a new one out called Sensation. Our everbearings is a Albion.
Okay. And I notice you're growing in plasticulture. Have you been doing that for the length of this farm, or is this a newer thing?
No, we've been doing it for the majority of it.
Okay.
The first year that we grew was in just traditional matted rows. After that, we went to plastic because we get more plants. It's cleaner. It's still labor intensive, but it's not as labor intensive.
And I know you've got rolling hills over here. It's just beautiful over on this side of Oklahoma. And plenty of water, more so than the rest of the state.
Plenty of water, yeah.
So that helps with drainage as well, right?
It does. And the plastic keeps the water from really getting too much in there. So we have drip line that runs underneath the plastic, and that's how we irrigate, fertilize, and all that. So we control how much water we get, and that's another reason why we went to plastic, is because we don't always get rain. And so, and it also keeps the weed control down quite a bit, more than, matted rows.
So you just had the Strawberry Festival, so I know you're in prime picking season. How long will you be picking?
Normally, we pick somewhere between 6 to 8 weeks. The traditional style is a lot sooner than that. Usually 3 to 4 weeks, sometimes 5 is the max. Currently, we are 3 weeks behind, but as you can see, there's still a lot of blooms on the plants. So we're looking to be picking for, 2nd to 3rd week of June.
Okay. And then what happens after that? I know a lot of times strawberries put on the runners. Do you save those?
We don't save the runners.
Okay.
What we will do is this year we're going to try something new. We're going to turn the cows in on the patch and let them graze it down, so we don't have a big foliage mat on top to pull the plastic up.
Okay.
Because we pull the plastic up every year, we replant every year, and so we're still trying to figure this part out on how to get the plastic up the easiest.
Right. Which is a common problem.
No, it is because it's new to everybody.
Right.
Mainly new to everybody, especially me, being 5 or 6 years in, we're still learning.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, I think it's interesting how you're looking at even grazing your cattle on it.
Yes.
That's a kind of innovative way of maybe solving some of that problem.
Some of it, yes. And, trying to keep as much chemical out of the ground as we can.
Yeah. So using new runners every year, do you find that that's more beneficial for your production versus trying to use some of the other runners? Or?
It's because once we get these plants, they are 3 or 4, 3rd or 4th year generation. And the further you go down the line, the more susceptible to disease that they are. The tolerance is not there the further they get away from the mother plant. And so that is one reason why we do not take our own runners, which you can, but we don't.
Okay. Well, I know you've been growing strawberries for a few years, but you've gotten all in with the association and the festival. Tell me a little bit about that aspect of it.
Well, I'm currently the Strawberry Growers Association president. Have been for the past 3 years. It's the group of farmers that we have here in Adair County. We all get together and we try to help one another out and discuss on how to be successful as a farmer, and we're trying to keep this tradition alive. There's not very many of us that's growing strawberries anymore. 1950 something, there was 126 entries, over 600 acres grown in Stillwell, and now there's 20 with 7 growers.
Okay. Well, and I hear you did well at the festival. You won first place
yes,
with your strawberries?
we got lucky and got first. We will take it how we can get it.
Yeah. Well, congratulations.
Thank you.
And I know that's a big event for the state. Everybody knows
Stillwell
for the strawberries. And so this is where they come from.
Yes,
and
ma'am.
It's exciting to see this. Do you mind if I help you pick a little bit as
sure,
we go through here? There's several red ones.
Several. And so normally this is not the ideal shape, but this is the ideal color.
Okay.
And so that one is ready, and you can see how the firmness, and that one's ready.
Okay.
Obviously the green ones are not ready.
And all of this is hand-picked, correct?
Hand-picked, every one of them.
So very labor involved.
Very labor intensive. I've got a crew that comes in and picks for me right now it'll be every other day until it heats up. Then it'll be every day. Okay. My boys, they help pick. This is a family-run farm, and it takes all 5 of us to keep it running.
Well, Bryce, it's clearly a labor of love, and thank you for sharing your farm with us
today. You're very welcome. We're glad to have you out here.
Thanks. A lot of green shoots that are starting to emerge in the garden. Now, if you're in the vegetable garden, we've all been anticipating those first shoots of asparagus that are coming up. And as you can see, we've got ours starting to come up. This particular asparagus we planted last spring, so a year ago. It's had 1 growing season on it already. Typically you plant a crown of asparagus, and that first season, after you've got it planted, it will start to emerge with these different sprouts. And you don't want to harvest any of those sprouts. Now after 1 season, you can see we've got a few more spears that are coming up on them. We want to be very judicious about how many we're going to harvest. So you can harvest maybe a couple, maybe for about a week, but then after that you really don't want to harvest too much more because you're basically robbing it of its ability to photosynthesize. So you can see we've got one that's already kind of expanded, that's going to start making that fern foliage. And this would be too far past harvesting. Typically, when you have spears that are emerging, you want to look for one that's about 6 to 10 inches in height, and that's about the ideal time to harvest them. You also want to make sure that the top is still really tight. You can see how these are tighter than these, of course. So these are kind of the ideal time to harvest. So once you begin to see your asparagus spears emerge out of the soil, you'll notice that earlier in the season with the cooler temperatures, they might get a little taller sooner. And that's okay. Usually they're still tender and very much edible to eat, even if they get a little beyond the 10 inches. However, later in the weeks of harvest, you'll notice that they might stay shorter, but they're going to get more fibrous sooner. So you want to be checking your harvest about every other day because they will start growing pretty rapidly once the soil temperatures start warming up. Now there's 2 different ways to harvest. You can just snap them off with your fingers, or with a knife you can go and slice down below the spear, actually down into the soil a little bit more. Now there's pros and cons to both methods here. So using your fingers, obviously it's easy. You can just go through the garden and snap those off, and you're not interfering with any of the others around there. If you're using a knife, the good thing about it is you can actually get down further into the woody tissue where it's not going to lose as much moisture when you harvest it. So again, pinching up here, you're going to get some more of that more succulent tissue, and so it might lose a little more moisture. Problem with the knife though is you're down further where you might accidentally cut some of those other emerging spears, even some that might be below the soil surface that you don't actually see. So those are kind of the pros and cons. Depending on how many you're harvesting, you might choose your method. Now again, we're going to be kind of cautious about how many we harvest because this has just been 1 year of growing, so probably just for a week. Your second year of growing, you can harvest for a few more weeks, and then finally your third full year of growing, you can go ahead and harvest for about 6 to 8 weeks into the season. And each year you're going to start to notice that more spears, bigger spears are coming up because what's happening is that root system has gotten larger, it's got more energy to then produce more stems. And so that's really what we want to do, is allow it to be able to grow a bigger root system in order to produce more spears for us going into the future. Again, if we were to take all of these off constantly, it's going to drain it from its ability to photosynthesize later in the season. Now, of course, even on a mature plant, there is a point where you want to quit harvesting. And so typically when your spheres, they'll start to decrease in diameter. So when they're about 3/8 of an inch in diameter, that's about the time that we want to start reducing our harvest. And just go ahead and let those spears come out. You'll see that they'll start to open up a little bit more, and you're going to get that lovely fern foliage. So that's a really nice, attractive quality of this perennial. If you haven't tried fresh asparagus out of the garden, it is delicious. So when you're harvesting, the best time to harvest is early in the morning to keep that moisture level up, and of course, refrigerate them as soon as possible. So today I have two different gourds that I want to show you that we've got growing here at the gardens. And this first one is called the birdhouse gourds. Now both of these gourds are great, especially if you have kids or you're crafters, because you can utilize them for fun activities. So this birdhouse gourd, as the name may imply, is often used to create birdhouses. You can see it's quite expansive, so you want to make sure to plant it and give it plenty of room. And we've actually had to kind of keep pulling it off of our deer fence here because it's just not strong enough to support the vine, especially once it starts producing fruit. It is preferable to try to trellis these so that your fruit is hanging versus setting on the ground, because you can get some rotting spots on your fruit if you do leave them laying on the ground too long. So that can be a concern. Although we're not really worried about eating these, we're just using them for decorative purposes. Now the birdhouse gourd, it's a hard-shelled gourd, and so we're actually going to leave these on until after the first frost. That's going to kill the vine, and then we'll be able to come through and collect all of our gourds and then put those away to dry them in order to make different craft projects. Now, this birdhouse gourd is native to Africa. However, the seeds have been distributed all across the world because of the fruit being so utilitarian and used for water and food containers, as well as musical instruments or even garments. They've used this. Now you'll probably notice not too many flowers on the birdhouse gourd, and that's because it makes a smaller white flower that tends to bloom later in the evening. So you won't necessarily see those flowers very predominantly, but you will definitely start seeing these fruit as they develop under these leaves, and especially the more you dig and after the vines die back, you'll probably be surprised with how much fruit you get. Now we'll go take a look at another gourd. So here's the second gourd that I want to show you, and this is a loofah gourd. Now you can grow this both for the fruit, but I think it's quite ornamental to add to your garden. You can see it's got a beautiful kind of palmate leaf to it, which I think sort of looks like a Boston ivy, but it also has these bright sunshiny yellow flowers that are big attractors of bees and other pollinators. So a great addition to any garden, just as a vine if you're wanting to cover something. However, the fruit, you can see we've got this trellis and we've got some giant fruits that are growing here. There's several of them growing back here. And so this is the fruit that we're after. So unlike the birdhouse gourd that we're growing for the shell, this one we're actually growing for the interior. It's got this kind of fibrous matrix interior. And once these dry, we're going to peel off that shell to reveal this. And this is what you can use in the bath or for your dishes to kind of scrub on. And so while we often get sponges from like the sea, this is called your loofah sponge that a lot of people use for kind of cleaning things. And so you can eat it earlier when it's picked, certain loofahs, but this one really is primarily grown for a sponge once it's dry. Now, just like the birdhouse gourd, the loofah gourd, they both like kind of rich, moist yet well-drained soil, plenty of sunshine, and then just step back because they're going to take off growing for you in your garden. Spring will be here before we know it, so make sure to join us right back here to learn more about Oklahoma gardening. To find out more information about show topics as well as recipes, videos, articles, fact sheets, and other resources, including a directory of local extension offices, be sure to visit our website at oklahomagardening.okstate.edu. Join in on Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram. You can find this entire show and other recent shows as well as individual segments on our Oklahoma Gardening YouTube channel. Tune in to our OK Gardening Classics YouTube channel to watch segments from previous hosts. Oklahoma Gardening is produced by the Oklahoma Cooperative Extension Service as part of the Division of Agricultural Sciences and Natural Resources at Oklahoma State University. The Botanic Garden at OSU is home to our studio gardens, and we encourage you to come visit this beautiful Stillwater gem. We would like to thank our generous underwriter, the Oklahoma Department of Agriculture, Food, and Forestry. Additional support is also provided by Pond Pro Shop, Greenleaf Nursery and the Garden Debut Plants, the Tulsa Garden Center at Woodward Park, the Oklahoma Horticultural Society, Smart Pot, and the Tulsa Garden Club.